All right, welcome to Cybersecurity Marketing Society Fireside Chat, Virtual Events Edition. I have a dear friend of mine joining us today as our panelist expert, subject matter extraordinaire. Sorry for my Slack, I'm going to close that. Who's going to take us through what's been happening in events since March, and we all know that March is that sort of deadline where things kind of changed for all of us. And then what's her take on the future of events and virtual events, and if things are going to change or stay the same. But Liz, take a few minutes to tell us about you, what you're doing now. Tell us about Techsy Talk, and then we'll dive right into the questions.
Sure. So I am an event producer. As you said, we work with mostly thought leader clients to help them use events to reach their audience. So it's typically a person who has an audience of their own and they want to use events to sell their products or make a bigger audience or whatever. So it's mostly conferences. And at the same time, I am a geek. You just have to know yourself. I love to just look at technology and try new things. I would not say I am really techie from a cool perspective. I don't know anything about TikTok or anything like that. I mean, I know what it is, but it's more like the user interface, the experience, how easy it is to use. And so I also, in addition to running Liz King events, we started Techsy Talk, which was an educational platform to show other event producers and other people in the events industry technology that they could use. So when we started in 2010, 2011, it was registration platforms and mobile apps and stuff like that. And so we've been doing virtual and hybrid events since then. Our first event that we did for Techsy Talk was a hybrid event. But it's kind of interesting because no one really cared. It's it was such an afterthought. Just kind of I guess if we want to live stream, we could live stream, but there was no thought around the engagement or what that was going to look like. Right. And from an attendee perspective, it was the last thing people wanted to do. And now, obviously, since March, that's pretty much everyone's only option. So it's been very interesting. Thankfully, we've been busier than ever because we do virtual. I know so many of our colleagues in the events industry are out of work or furloughed. It's just been such a crazy year for the whole industry. But yeah, I'm all about technology, and I guess no better time for that than this crazy environment that we live in right now.
So true. That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, it's always a hot topic within the society Slack group is, so I'm going to invest in this conference. Has anyone had, experience with their platform? Am I really going to get booth traffic? How are they driving booth traffic? And
yeah,
how can I get the most of my money? When you start to compare sponsorship packages for in-person and virtual, it's very different, and also the ROI must be very different too. So awesome. I just want to tell everyone, definitely engage with us on the chat, send in your comments, feedback, or questions for Liz, and then we'll take them as they come. We won't wait until the end. We want you very much part of the conversation. All right, cool. Both Amy and I are going to tackle some questions, and
hey guys.
Yeah, we'll take it from there. So yeah, I mean, we already covered this. Everyone is flocking to virtual events. How are we keeping them fun nowadays and interesting, and not another webinar? Because technically it kind of just is a series of webinars put into a fancy platform.
Yeah, everyone's virtual, and in March, I feel like it was crazy. I think that people were really craving those connections. There was so much content available. And maybe it was just that panic moment of oh my gosh, I can't be social. So I just need to soak it all up. So everyone was doing virtual, and every person was participating in a million virtual events. So for example, if you were marketing something in March, it was 10 times easier than it is right now to get someone to sign up for a virtual event. So everyone was doing it, but the truth is people were not really doing it well because there wasn't a lot of time to think or plan. Most people, this was their first time doing it. And so the problem is that the experience sucked. And now people are not so likely to go back, which I definitely don't think is a long-term trend. But now we're in this different period where it's I can just speak for myself. I'm tired of being online and I'm a techie, but it's just like how much content could I possibly consume between being home, working all day, then, you know, if you're watching Netflix or whatever, you're in a billion Zoom meetings, and then do I really want to add like a conference on top of that? So it's just a lot, I think, to get people's attention. The thing is, there are so many things that you can do to up the interest level. The platform obviously being one of them, some of the unique things that you do from a planning perspective, obviously your marketing. So for example, we did an event in June. We just did 2 weeks of content for 2 hours per day as compared to like a 2-day conference,
Mm,
because people don't have the kind of mental time to just like tune in for hours and hours and hours. And it worked really well. But I think you just have to be really creative, especially now, to get people's attention. You know, different from March, now kids are back in school. So parents, in addition to working from home, are trying to take care of their kids. They're having meetings. Like attention is so hard to get right now.
yeah.
So you have to really just be thinking about literally anything you can do to be different. And, you know, and to get away from, I've been talking about like webinar culture pre-March. Everyone is doing content marketing was like the thing. There's so much content out there and there were a billion webinars. And really what people did, I'm sure I'm not the only one, sign up for every webinar I see that sounds cool. I don't even put them on my calendar because I'm not planning on going. I just know I'm going to get the recording. And then I get the recording and it sits in my inbox and I never go back. Never,
Yeah.
unless it's like I happen to be super bored and the topic was incredibly interesting. So the problem is that now conferences, virtual conferences, are fighting that battle. It's like, how do you know, get people to sign up, but then more importantly, how you get them to show up and participate and watch the content, and what does that look like?
Right.
Is a challenge.
Yeah, 100%. I've actually heard, well, maybe from a few of our members, but I've heard people get really creative with virtual events where they're doing like live cooking sessions and live wine tasting, where the attendees get a little bit of the wine samples ahead of time, and then
Yeah.
they log on, they do that. Have you seen any of your clients do the same, or have you been asked to do something similar? I feel like that's so.
Yeah. I think all kinds of entertainment. We have clients who are doing like entertainment breaks as part of the content. And so they have like, you know, mentalists, magicians, meditation, whatever it might be that they kind of like insert into the overall agenda, which keeps people really engaged. Definitely, we are seeing, for example, we have a conference next week. We are emailing everyone in advance recipes, and then that way they can kind of like get their list at home. And then the following week, we do a cooking class with everyone as part of the agenda. And it's kind of fun because everyone can like do it from home, but it feels like a more like an experience with everyone, which is nice. And this is a full week event. So it's kicking off like the healthy eating and, you know, the kind of like foods that get your mind focused as compared to like wanting to veg out. So you kind of set the stage with that for the week as well, which is really nice.
That's really fun.
Sounds
Yeah.
awesome.
You mentioned meditation, and it brought me back to the first time I went to Taxi Talk Live in New York City. And I thought, my God, this conference is so fun. They had music and a DJ in between sessions. They had I remember you had a yoga instructor come in, inspirational speakers, just to keep it. It felt like a party. It was the first time I've ever been to a conference of that format, and I thought it was super fun. So yeah, awesome. So what would you say your advice is for marketers, especially like in the cybersecurity industry? I mean, it's tough as it is. The audience is in many ways really hard to get in touch with and get their attention, let alone get them to commit to actually coming to your event. What is your advice for them in order to like shift their in-person budgets to virtual and digital channels? And it can be virtual events or something else that you've also done.
Yeah, I think it's all about the personal connections now, you know, again, because like those traditional marketing channels are even noisier than they were before, which I think was already a challenge. So we're seeing is a lot of brands transitioning, instead of doing like a once a year annual event, they're now transitioning into member organizations where they are offering, for example, this event that we have next week, it's you buy the ticket to the conference, it's the same price as the in-person conference was, but now you're a member of their organization for the whole year. So you get monthly content, you get access to all the replays, you get networking. And so it's kind of a way of keeping the price the same while still adding value. And one of the things that we're really doing across the board with all of our clients is a lot more of like the one-to-one emails as compared to email blasts. Obviously, segments and segmenting emails is always super important, but anything that you can do to make those personal connections. So from a sponsorship standpoint, we are seeing less of the booth experience and more of, virtual happy hours where they might send wine to people and do a wine tasting and have like a conversation there. So I think those unique experiences that you were talking about very much are the sponsorable experiences. The one I talked about with the cooking class, that's a sponsored thing. They're promoting their food products through that cooking class format. So we are seeing more of that. Like, how can we get people, for example, one of the virtual platforms that we use a lot called SwapCard, you can actually do like one-on-one video chats with your sponsors. So I think sponsors are definitely looking more for that than they are X number of impressions to their quote unquote virtual booth, which really isn't that exciting.
Yeah.
Quick question
So,
on that, on
yeah.
virtual booths. I know at least in cybersecurity, there's been a lot of disappointment with virtual booths. It's literally just like a PNG of a booth that you put your logo on.
Yeah.
So curious of your opinion on if you've seen any companies do virtual booths right, or where you see, how you see, I guess, booths being replaced now that we're more virtual.
Yeah, so I have an unpopular opinion on this topic. I think that trade shows didn't work very well in the first place. And now you're trying to shove them into a virtual environment and they really don't work. Nobody wants to stand behind a table all day and like stalk people. Nobody wants to walk through a trade show floor and be stalked the whole time, feel like I can't make eye contact or I'm going to be attacked by someone. So I feel like that model has been dying for a long time. I made the prediction on a different podcast. Someone asked me and I told them, like, I think they'll, like, those big trade shows, I think they're going to go away. They were like, no, there's no way. But that's because it's tied to revenue models that people don't know how to innovate, but it's not because they're so valuable that we like have to go back to them. So my true opinion is I think replicating it is a bad idea. Trying to do exactly what you said, like, okay, here's a great image of a booth with my logo on it. And then where's the interaction? So more of the sponsored activities, the virtual happy hours, the thought leadership, being part of the stage of the content, I think is super important. Those kinds of deliverables are better. The only platform I've seen recently that I think is interesting, because there's a lot of those like avatar things too, which I hate personally. We like create a person, like walk around a fake trade show. But there is Maria, them, All Seated, probably, they came out with something called EXVO, that is very similar. So it has kind of like the design of the booths, but they're floor plan software. So it's definitely a better look and feel. You can use your keyboard to kind of like navigate around based on what you'd want. But what's cool is that your character is a video. And when you walk up to other people, it initiates video chats as compared to like playing a pre-recorded video, which is what I've seen on a lot. So you can actually like have more of those serendipitous networking connections, not only in the booth, but with other attendees. And you can actually search the attendee list and then figure out where they are in the room and go find them like you would at a traditional event. So that's maybe the closest I've seen to something in that more like avatar boothy space that I feel like, okay, I could see that some people would find that really valuable because it's not just pre-recorded videos and logos.
Right. And two, I think it's crazy. I'm sorry, my dog is barking. Every company probably has a whole stock room of promotional items and tchotchkes and stuff. Have you seen anyone get creative in doing like giveaways virtually and still giving promo items out?
Yeah.
I don't know if I have. You guys probably have seen more of that than I have. I mean, I have heard of people just kind of like still doing physical gift bags and mailing them to people. I don't know if I would say that that's like super creative, probably because they do have all these tchotchkes just like laying around. They're just trying to get rid of it. But I have, similar to the wine idea, like where they're sending people something to add a physical component to what they're doing virtually. But I don't know if I've seen anything that I was like really wowed by.
Right.
Yeah. At Unibuddy, where I am now, we do virtual goodie bags, and those are just basically a summary of the sessions, but it is like well put summary that like a packaged content piece that you can take with you and take all the learnings from the conference sessions, which I think is really neat. And it's just another way for people to engage with your content further. It can get forwarded to colleagues, friends. So yeah, and I think that that's a neat idea.
And you can track the ROI. I hate the waste of gift bags in the first place. Like we haven't done them for years because who wants to just, it's like, give us all your stuff and we'll pass it to people who will throw it in the trash. Like, what is the point of that?
Right.
But in a virtual environment, people can like claim what they want. You can see the numbers and the metrics behind that. So I like that idea a lot better. We've actually been doing, virtual gift bags for years prior to being forced to,
And you also weed out a lot of the bad leads because you don't have people coming to your booth just to get scanned to get free stuff anymore.
Yeah. Or at least there's some way of qualifying them. Like, I've seen like in the booth scenario where if you watch this video, you're entered to win X, so you get a little bit of like what you want out of it as a company before you're just like passing out junk.
Yeah, absolutely. For our for the society conference back in September, we did mail koozies, we mailed stickers, and just a small thank you note that we thought would be nice for attendees to get, just because there isn't that personal connection anymore.
Mhm.
And personally, I love stickers. Anytime I can get stickers, I love them. I should put them on bottles, laptops, and stuff. And we did get a really nice feedback from our members saying we love the stickers. They would even take pictures of where they actually put them and post it on Slack, which was nice. So I don't think stickers are dying, but maybe everything else, the pen and the
all the extra stuff. Yeah. Well,
Especially
with
cybersecurity, stickers are like so popular for some reason.
Yeah.
Well, Maria, with Texie Talk, we used to tell people to like wear bright colors, for example, and it just really makes the room look so much brighter and happier. And there was like a little fun element, people would talk in advance about like what they were wearing. And obviously if they were all black, like I do every day, you weren't kicked out or anything, but it was just something for people to think about. And one of the ideas I've had, which we haven't had time to execute on yet, but a lot of events, like even for our conferences, we would sell like merchandise, like same t-shirts. We had a t-shirt one year that was like, event planning is just like riding a bike, except the bike is on fire and you're on fire and everything is on fire or something like that. So we created like the t-shirt and we just had it available for people to purchase. But I've been thinking lately, like it would be really cool for people to either be given or to purchase like matching shirts. So then when you're all on Zoom, there's like, or on whatever platform you're using, you feel like, oh yeah, we're part of something, and then you get to keep that. I think something like that, where there's like more meaning to it, is always,
I love that.
a good way.
I really like that.
I love that t-shirt.
But you just have to design it like from here up. That's the hard part.
Right. Yeah. You don't
can have like some cool content. Yeah.
Right.
Our old shirts would not work for that.
So true. Just on the shoulders.
Yeah. Like a big logo or something.
I have a sort of an icebreaker question, a late icebreaker, but in the COVID experience so far with everything digital, do you have any funny like Zoom stories or event stories, like someone's dog jumped up in the camera or something like that?
Someone's husband flushed the toilet right next door.
Well, so I'm going to just share a personal experience. I don't know if this is men or women on the call, so too bad. I accidentally, and I'm techie, so I know everything technology. I know how to I have like covers over my camera, the whole bit. One time on a major client call, I was nursing my baby and the video went on. I think whatever platform they were using, they just at some point it turned on for everyone because they were sharing screens or something. And it was a new platform that I had never used. And I got an email from like one of the other women on the call that was like, hey, just FYI. I was like, I am one of those people, which thank God I don't think like people actually saw anything, but
I mean, hey, it's a natural thing. It's
A
really
normal part of life.
not that.
definitely was not what I was planning to show people, but you know, sure enough. So I never thought I'd be one of those people, but I can't call anyone else out because it happens.
Sometimes I forget because I'm so used to being on camera that I'm not thinking I'm on camera.
Yeah.
And so I'll even find myself like, I'll like chug my coffee and then I'm like, oh crap, I'm on camera.
It's hard. I mean, you're like constantly on call and balancing 5,000 things, it's like, in this case, I was on my phone because I didn't want to have the camera. And so I had I thought I disabled it on the phone. Then I was like propping it up on something, it's just too many things going on at once.
Yeah.
That's so funny. I've had the nursing thing happen where I had Australia calls at night, and sometimes the baby would wake up and they'll be like, "Hey guys, sorry, this is going to be a no camera kind of meeting because this girl's got a nurse," and they're always just pretty cool about it. Yeah, of course, do your thing.
Thank God. That's the one benefit of COVID is that it has forced everyone to be very personal and understand each other's challenges. Like I was on a call earlier today and my son is just like screaming, totally happy, but I'm like, I'm literally 3 rooms away from him. And I know that it's so distracting. Like, unless I go outside, I have no other, it's like, what else can you do? So you just keep saying sorry and muting, unmuting and doing what you can do. And the thing is, and this is like fun to talk about because it's crazy, but the truth, we have to keep this in mind when we're planning events too. It's like, I've seen a lot of conferences where they want everyone on video. It's a huge inconvenience for people. Like sometimes I think, and this is something we think about with conference content, I think at this point, people just want to consume the content. And then there are pieces where they want high interaction. They want to be, I wouldn't be surprised if the people listening today, all of them are doing something else, and that's not offensive. That's like totally what I do. So I can't say anything. So when we're designing content, we just have to think about like this is not just like pre-March, everyone is just nothing else to do. So we're just focused in on this conference. They're doing 7,000 other things.
Yeah. I really like that you call it content design. Because
Did I say that? That sounds good.
Because there is an art to it, really. It's not just content production. It's not just writing things and like getting questions ready. It's really design so you can curate an experience and make sure there is sort of interaction and they're not falling asleep behind their screen. Cool. Aileen, do you want to tackle the next few questions?
Yeah, and I actually have one that just came up as we were talking. I recently attended this, I don't know if anyone's familiar with the book Lean In by Sheryl Sandberg. She's the COO of Facebook, but the Lean In organization does these women in leadership talks, and I attended one recently, and Sheryl Sandberg actually came on for like 10 minutes as a guest, and she said, she's a mom of 3, I think. And she said, my life was run by events because she went and guest spoke at so many places. And she said, going forward, I'm never going back to that. She said, I think you're just going to be able to say, hey, can I zoom in to this talk? Like people will be in person, but she'll be speaking or whatever over Zoom. And I'm curious your opinion and your perspective on that, of how you think that will be received if the speaker is on Zoom and the audience is in person.
I think it's going to happen, but I just think we have a really bumpy road to get there. For example, most people are offering all their virtual content for free because there is this like difference. In person in our minds is valuable and it's worth X dollars. Virtual is free. It's that webinar culture. It like killed the opportunity, at least for now, to take it seriously and to tune in as if it is, when you go to a conference, yes, we have other things going on, but we prioritize sitting at that conference and interacting, and we really want to network and we really want to soak it in. When it's virtual, we don't do that. We don't prioritize it nearly the same. And so that like switch in our brains has to happen for us to value a speaker coming in. It's like, well, I'm not going to pay $700 for that ticket if the speaker's not even there. So the Sheryl Sandbergs and, Gary Vaynerchuk's, that's what was selling a lot of conferences, is like, oh, I get to go and I get to meet them. Well, if they're virtual, where's that ticket price? So there's a lot of value stuff that we have to think about. Pricing is going to change a lot. And until you get to the point where you can really monetize virtual in the same way and people normalize the experience enough, I think it will be hard. I think the prices are going to be a lot lower. She's going to get paid a lot less to do that. The organizers are going to get paid a lot less. And that's why I think a lot of organizations are going the membership route, because I can't just ask for this amount of money for one day or for 6 hours, or what else could I do? So they're trying to figure out, like, okay, I could provide content all year round, and we can, so those monetization strategies have to shift. And at the same time, like, people's comfort level and what they value has to change a little bit more. But I do think it's inevitable. Once you've seen how much you can accomplish, it's the same as like working from home. My husband started working from home in March. And they said, May, June, July, you'll come back. They've now just pushed it to like, it definitely won't be until at least next March. Why? Because they know everyone is still working. So
Yep.
what are we paying for all these places for? So I think the same will happen with conferences and events. I just think it's going to take a little while.
Yeah, you make such good points. I totally agree. And that sort of segues to the next question of, obviously the key to a successful event, whether in person or virtual, is those great expert speakers. So COVID aside, do you have any tips that you can share with our attendees on how to get those expert speakers and influencers to buy in to speak at your event?
Yeah. So, I mean, part of it is the value proposition. You just need to make sure that there is a win for them, that it makes some sense. Like we always do the research. Do they have a new book coming out that our audience would be really interested in? Do they have a new venture? Obviously, if there's some win for them, they're more likely, especially if you don't have the budget. I mean, if you have the budget to pay people, you just go and ask them and you pay that's easy. But if you're trying to kind of negotiate or trying to like get in a different way, then you want to make sure there's some win for them. And another thing is, I think Twitter was killed by marketers. No offense to anybody here, but it's just basically everyone just started like marketing on Twitter. So all the conversations kind of disappeared. However, it is still one of the best ways to get speakers, because if you direct message people on Twitter, typically it's them as compared to their agent or, their management company. And so you do tend to get a response faster, or at least I've experienced that. LinkedIn is another potential place for that. But I think there's, it's like with everything, it's like the right value, enough interesting ways you're trying to make the connection so you actually get through to someone. And then, to your point, like I think offering virtual speaking opportunities and things like that, they do, I think at this point at least, expect to get paid less. Whether that's right or not, that's a whole nother conversation. But that could open opportunities.
That is so interesting. Those are the secrets of the trade, the whole Twitter thing. It's amazing. So you only get to learn these things when you're actually, face to face or with an expert like Liz that will give you the secrets of the trade. I love that. I didn't know that. That's amazing.
Yeah. I mean, if you think about it, it's one of those platforms for whatever reason that you don't necessarily have your marketing team managing every little thing that goes out. You are typically the person reading the direct messages and just scanning it. Even if you have a team managing it, that's typically, we get a better response there.
What about LinkedIn? What would you say is the better platform?
I tend to get a faster response from Twitter. LinkedIn is still, I agree, like the person is typically somewhat involved in it. But, unless you're like job searching or you're really trying to build your brand, I find that people check in on LinkedIn a lot less frequently. So even if they would respond to you, they might not check it for a week or two. Whereas with Twitter, they get it like, and then the other piece of that is obviously send it like 9:00 at night or 6:00 in the morning so that's what they see. And you do tend to get a faster response than, trying to send through their contact form on their website or something.
And with the initial message, do you sort of just ask like, hey, I have this event about, this cybersecurity event called whatever, we're interested in offering you a speaking session. Would you like to hop on a call? Like, what's usually your introductory message?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Typically, I would find a tweet that they've posted recently that has like a relation to the content. And I would like use that content to say something like, wow, this was super powerful. Our audience would love this. We have an event coming up, whatever. Would love to chat about speaking opportunities or something. Like, you want to keep it vague, but you want to make it's like anything. You want to flatter them a little bit. I read, I follow you. You make it sound like you're their biggest fan, and there's an opportunity here, and you kind of keep it super vague so that, they're open to the conversation.
Yeah. And
I
it's
like
even better if it's actually genuine, if you really are a fan. I think
Yeah.
the message really can be like, better. I think one example is a couple of weeks ago, I listened to a podcast. One of our members in the society, she hosts and produces the Inbound Success podcast on the Impact agency website. And she had Rand Fishkin on as a guest, and I listened to the whole episode. And at the end, she said, how can people get in touch with you? And he literally shared his email. And there I was 5 minutes later on my email saying, by the way, I just listened to your episode with Kathleen. She's one of our members. We love her. Amazing insights. Would you come on a fireside chat with us for the society? And he immediately answered and said yes. And I mean, obviously I was starstruck a little bit. And I was like, oh my God, did he just answer? You gotta just try it, I guess. I think you can't expect a successful reply every time to you outreach, but I think if you take the time to, make it as personalized as possible.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So who is one of your favorite speakers that you've ever lined up for an event?
Oh man, that's an interesting question. Gosh, there have been so many good speakers over the years. I happen to be a fan of Kelly Clarkson. So when she was a speaker at an event once, I really loved it because she is exactly what you would expect, bubbly, super kind, super nice. There's a lot of celebrities and, first of all, there's a ton of amazing speakers who you probably just have never heard of. So that's why I'm not mentioning them necessarily, but there are a ton of like other speakers who are really well known and people love them. And then on the event side, you just think, that is the nastiest person I've ever worked with. I won't name names, of course. Kelly Clarkson in particular was not one of those people. She's very down to earth. Sure, what can I do? Her agents had told us in advance, like, don't let her go by people because she will just take pictures and selfies and signatures forever. Because she doesn't mind, So she was maybe one of the top in terms of just like, I loved working with her and I like her in general. So that was a good one.
That's awesome. And so to follow up on that, who's your dream speaker that if you could pick anyone, you would dream of working with and speaking at one of the events you put on?
Oh,
not to put you on the spot or anything.
These are hard questions. Gosh, maybe just because of today's election day and everything's in my mind, Obama comes to mind. Either one, really, Michelle or Barack. I would take either one. I think Michelle's story is very interesting. I watched that Netflix show about, I think it was on Netflix or whatever, the movie about her. And
yeah, that was so good.
Yeah, I feel like that would be an interesting conversation.
Great.
I would definitely choose that. Absolutely. I second that choice for sure. I have a question actually. For those of us that are looking to just move away from going to trade shows and industry events and just doing our own, right? Creating our own series and creating that audience and following. Obviously you start from nothing, but what are your top 3 tips to get started and not get overwhelmed and think it's impossible?
Yeah. So, first of all, I think it's a great idea to do. I think everyone is going to be doing it, which is why attention is very difficult to get. And so I think, I've been building communities online for years, and a few things I would say, one is start small. There's a lot of potential with huge numbers. And I think when you think about like, when you're going from like, we invest in other brands to we have our own brand, there is a huge disconnect in terms of like number of impressions you expect and what the engagement. In those scenarios where you're investing in someone else's brand, it's about mass messaging. But in your own brand and when you're creating your own audience, you need far fewer really dedicated fans to make the kind of revenue that you want and to give you the connections you want. So you have to kind of change your thought process and really dial back the numbers. It's about quality over quantity. So that's one thing. The other thing is, I really like to do everything with that lean startup model. That book was like a game changer for me. And I think it's really important. So don't build it and then hope they will come. That doesn't work really well in community. Instead, start with a few people and let them build it with you. And Maria, you were part of the founder network that I was running, and like that works really well. It was like, hey, why don't we do a podcast? Okay, Maria, could you help us market it? And hey, Corey has a studio. Let's do that. And we worked together to do it. And granted, it didn't last that long in that particular case. But I think in other scenarios, we have seen definitely where you kind of let the group tell you what they need. You let them tell you what's interesting, what's valuable, and you kind of build with them, which makes them a lot more invested in what you're doing. So I think that's important. And then, the last thing is just kind of balancing I think when companies do it from a brand perspective, it's always just really hard to not just be marketing to them all the time. So I think really thinking about that thought leadership perspective, what is the true value that you want to offer? And I always tell companies, like, just imagine that you're going to have an audience of 5,000 people who will never buy a single thing from you. What's the point of that? And there is a point of that. That's the thing, is you have to kind of think about, like, what could we be doing with these people? Could they be ambassadors for us? Could they be recommending us to people? Could they get so much great content from us that they bring more people in and those people buy? So it's not just about gathering people who are going to buy your services and like love you forever, but they have to have enough value in it to care. And so really thinking first about the value as compared to what you can achieve once you've built this great group. And I see Elvis is asking, the book is The Lean Startup. It is the best book for businesses. That and Profit First were like my two game changers. So yeah.
So when you're building your community from the beginning, is it you just reaching out to your network, or are you reaching out to people that you like, a specific like focus of the type of job role or whatever type of person you want?
I think it should always be a mix, actually. So you want the ideal target audience, you identify that, and then you identify a handful of people who fit that criteria. And then you need some warm relationships, ideally still within that ideal target market. But anytime we start a community, we feed it with if it's going to be a paid community, for example, we feed it with some free members who we just know are like conversation starters and going to give us great feedback. And because if you start a group and it's dead, people lose attention very, very fast. So you want to have a few people in there who are just like good people, and they're going to drive the conversation. It can't be the brand all the time or the marketing team. So it should be kind of a mix of those people. And then over time, the goal is, your warm leads model the behavior, and then everyone still starts doing it. And eventually this side of the group grows to be the vast majority, but it has the kind of like culture that you've built from the beginning.
It's so true. And then at one point, it's kind of not necessarily autopilot, but you start to see just user generated content, and you kind of take the back seat and let the community really flourish on its own and feed itself to grow.
Yeah. That's when you know it's working really well. When it just, like, I have one Facebook group that I don't really have to check in that often. If I do, it's more actually at this point for my interest. Like I have a question or I want to see what someone posted. But every time I go in, there's been several new conversations started, and people are helping each other and people are learning from each other. And that's the ideal situation, that it's not so much about like pushing marketing messages or pushing content in any form. It becomes valuable on its own.
That's awesome.
Exactly. Yeah. We've seen that success even in the society. Like, we watch what our members are asking for and starting conversations about, and that helps us line up different fireside chats, different panels, like, obviously virtual events and what is the future of events is a huge conversation topic. So totally agree with that. I'm sure
Yeah,
Maria too.
yeah, because most of us, for our marketing budgets, a big chunk of that was events. And so we've all been just trying to figure out, well, so what now? Where do I put this? I don't know, $500,000.
Yeah,
We
exactly.
had set out for is really fancy, shiny boots and travel and giveaways and all of that stuff. It's crazy.
The amount
I love that
saved
from
on,
the height.
yeah, the amount saved on travel alone just must be astronomical. Like,
Yeah, absolutely. Well, there's been so much gold in this conversation today. I'm so excited. What we're going to do, actually, I think we should definitely transcribe this and provide some of the really, really amazing tips and tricks after for all of our members and everyone that might have missed it. But I do want to take the last few minutes. I don't think we have any questions, but if there are any questions from the audience, do send it in now. But I want to take a few minutes for you to tell us a little bit about your upcoming event, Liz, and what it's about and where people can go and check it out and maybe sign up if they're interested.
Sure. So I mentioned that I have this Texi Talk conference that we do this year. We are calling it Texi Talk Global. It was an in-person conference that we did 10 times, and then we ended it in 2018 because everyone in the entire events industry was talking about technology. And quite frankly, it got a little bit boring. It was like everyone was talking about the same thing. So we retired it. We said that was it. And now we're bringing it back because the whole world has completely changed and everything is really exciting again. So much to talk about. Virtual platforms are like evolving so fast. It's insane. Like even a company that just rolled out an update will roll out another one next week that completely changes. We were talking early. I don't even know if we were technically live when we're talking about Zoom and their events piece now. Anyway, Texi Talk Global is coming up November 17th and 18th, which is just 2 weeks from now. It is 2 days of content. We're going to have main stage for the first 3 hours or so, and then followed by 2 hours of kind of choose your own adventure content. Different formats is how we're organizing the content. So instead of organizing it by like content tracks, it's like fireside chats, traditional sessions, interactive sessions. You can kind of decide what you want to talk about. And the content is all around our 3 pillars, which are the engagement and how we can increase engagement. Technology, of course, is part of it. So we'll talk about different platforms and different things that you can do. And innovation, we have a really cool session on virtual reality, for example, which I used to always say is going to be dead for events. But now that everyone's home, so like if you're all at an event, do you want to put on goggles and be somewhere else? No. You want to be with the people you're with. But if you're home and you can't travel, wouldn't you love to have virtual reality headsets sent to your home and suddenly you're with everybody else? Like that would be so cool. So these are the kinds of evolutions that we couldn't have predicted. So it's everything from, the basics, virtual event production, to some cooler, more forward thinking things. And we're doing the same thing I was talking about earlier. So it's an annual membership. We are offering just the live content, pay what you can. $0 is fine because the industry has been through so much. But we also have this membership component where you can watch the content live, you can get all the recordings, you can get monthly content moving forward, monthly networking, all that kind of stuff. So people can learn more at Texi Talk Global, which maybe we'll put in the chat or something because I know it's weird for people to spell. But yeah, I'm really excited about it. I think it's a good opportunity. And
Sorry.
Yes, TexiTalkGlobal.com. And Maria, we are extending the annual pass to your members. So if anyone is interested in that, they can just contact you directly or me directly, and we'll get them registered.
Oh, that's amazing.
Awesome.
Thank
you guys.
Sure.
Wow. And I just want to say, I remember you creating a really, really fun tagline for the coming back of Texi Talk. I think it was bring Texi back or something like that.
Yes, we're bringing Texi back. We always a fun little thing is whenever we had the in-person conference and people would go to break, like coffee break or lunch break, we would always tell them, like, when it's time to come back to the room, because we would play Justin Timberlake's "We're Bringing Sexy Back."
Yes.
We would like change the lyrics. "We're bringing Sexy back." So like the content is coming back. So that was always like, when you hear that song, you're like, oh, we got to get back in the room. So we thought
That's
it would
incredible.
be fitting for this new virtual event.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. On that note, I had a lot of fun with this chat today, and thank you for all the tips and tricks and the secrets. I learned a lot about Twitter today. I might use that from on.
It's not dead.
It's not dead. Email's not dead, and events are not dead, right?
Exactly right.
The summary of our chat today. Thank you again, Liz. We'd definitely love to have you back. Because I'm pretty sure this topic is going to be ongoing. So I'm sure the members will want to learn more.
Awesome. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thanks, Liz.
All right. Check on our YouTube channel for the recording, guys, if you want to share it with colleagues and friends. See you next time.
Bye, everyone. Thanks for coming.